AI is bringing all new tools to develop blazingly fast. Why? Because the speed of change is just eye-popping, right?
You're getting left behind fast. And it's not going to take too long where you really literally can't catch up.
Yes, you need it. Yes, you will fall behind if you're not using it. I promise.
All right, so now let's talk about artificial intelligence. So AI, I think we all have learned, really means something different to everyone. You've got vendors saying that, we have AI built in. You've got other companies that are saying we're an AI first company. And then you've got tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini. They're all promising to transform your business, and it can feel like a lot. And for many business owners, the question isn't, is AI valuable? We know it is. The real question is, what do I actually do with it? Like, where do I even start? So that's exactly why we're here today. At our last event, we focused mostly on how businesses are just beginning to, dip their toes in the pond and kind of get a feel for what AI can do. So today we want to take that a little bit further. Because the real opportunity in AI isn't just about the tools, it's really more about your data. Just think about it. You're sitting on a mound of data in your own business. You've got customer information, operational metrics, you've got financial trends, but it's often scattered across systems and spreadsheets and applications. And what we're starting to see is that the companies getting real results from AI are the ones that are figuring out how to use that data to drive better decisions and improve efficiency, and also to create measurable impact. So our goal today is to share real experiences, what's working, what's not, and maybe, we're learning along the way with the goal of giving you ideas and maybe sparking some ideas of your own. Some new ways, and sparking interest in new ways that you can start thinking about how to use your own data in AI. So with that, let me introduce Dr. John Stowell. Hi, John. Welcome.
Good morning.
John is a 25-year marketing veteran with the UGA Small Business Development Center. He's a consultant who has led iconic brands like Coca-Cola and Gold Peak Iced Tea. And today he's going to share how to use AI to be a marketing hero. So welcome, John. We're glad that you're here.
Glad to be here. Hey, good morning. Nice to meet everybody. Even though I've got a doctorate and all that stuff, most of my career was in business, 28 years in business before I went back and got a doctorate. I was a fool. Around 57, 58, I got inspired to teach a little bit. I do enjoy teaching very much. For the past 3 years, I've been a small business consultant. Let's see if we get this going here. I've been a small business consultant for UGA for 3 years. I serve 60 to 100 clients a year, do typically 10 to 15 loans for anywhere from 250 up to about 5 million, and do a lot of digital marketing and AI in part to stay current. I'm a little more mature than a few people in here. I remember the pre-internet days, right? So it's all about how do you add value to your clients. And what you're going to see today is more on the tips and tricks side. How many of you have heard of the UGA Small Business Development Center? Okay, there are 18 offices around the state. We're half funded by the state, half federal government. Each office has 2 to 4 business consultants that have 10 to 15 years business experience plus MBAs, typically a specialty like marketing or accounting or operations. And believe it or not, what would you guess the charge is for our services? Zero, nada. There just needs to be a good business case. We're all about delivering an ROI for the taxpayers. And we've been in business as an entity, Small Business Development Center, for over 40 years. So let's talk about AI. I love this quote. AI won't replace humans per se, but humans who use AI will replace those who don't. Does that kind of make sense from what you're seeing so far?
Yeah.
Does it feel like right now we're in the middle of a tsunami?
Yes.
Technological tsunami? Has anybody ever heard of the Gutenberg printing press? Late 1200s, German, original printing press. There are some technologists who are saying that what's happening now between AI and robotics will make that look small and the pace of change dramatically faster in society and across economies. So what's this deck about? What's my pitch about today? A general understanding on the power, the dynamism, how fast it's changing, and the risks that have come with AI. I'm going to be covering 3 to 4 of the major types of AI. In 25 minutes, do you think I can really immerse you deeply? Oh, thanks for the expectation. I appreciate that vote of confidence. Sorry, I will not be able to fulfill on that. I'm going to be walking you through 3 of the 4. Liam's going to be talking about agentic, and then we've got a cybersecurity expert that's going to really go through cyber and everything around AI that way. I'm also going to be walking you through what I call a use case. Has everybody heard about use cases for marketing? It's basically, what are you trying to accomplish? Specific activities. So this is kind of a tips and tricks presentation inside of a framework. Kind of walk through all this. I have worked very consciously and explicitly to stay current on, I've got a digital marketing pro certificate, recently went and earned an ASBDC AI certificate. Why? Because the speed of change is just eye-popping, right? And you've got to stay current to be able to help your clients. Everybody knows Elon Musk, right? Do you think there's a big, strong why in terms of why we should become current, at least begin to use some of the AI tools? Okay, AI power. I think everybody kind of grasped that in general. Anybody tell me what a hallucination is? Does all the data that comes from a prompt, is it accurate? No, come on. It's coming off a large language model. You saying it creates its own answers?
Yes.
You saying just like the Google responses are always accurate, right? Everything you see on the internet is accurate, right? You got to dig into the citations. Has anybody seen any great deepfake videos? Those are scary. I mean, when you have to watch eye movements and how the mouth is moving and stuff like that. By the way, I'm going to show you a real low-cost platform for creating your own videos off of still images for $20 a month. I was playing around with it. Unfortunately, the video is not embedded, but for literally $20 a month, you can load up a still shot and create a 30-second video that's fully animated. And then, of course, we're going to be addressing, because I'm not the deep subject matter expert, hacking and cybersecurity overall. Okay, so AI is bringing all new tools to develop, copy images, process analysis. Is blazingly fast. Lower cost capabilities. In some cases, do you think a few people might be replaced? Especially those who are not keeping up to date, right? Right? We got hallucinations, we've covered that. Another drawback that doesn't get talked about much with AI is much of the data is category generic. It's not unique to your brand. It may not be exactly unique to your consumers or your customers. And you got to peel through that and figure out what's more category generic versus brand. And by the way, some of the pages I'm going to produce today or share with you are data heavy. I can give you my card at the end and you can get a PDF version of this deck, okay, where I compare some of the platforms. Okay, we're going to start out with prompt-based. Can somebody name a prompt-based AI platform? Give me some others. Claude. Well, Grok. Perfect. How about generative design and media? Has anybody produced with any of the automated create your own video? Create your own social media calendar with all the posts and link it to the videos. This goes into the space of beginning to get to agentic. This is totally out of my depth, agentic. Liam's going to be talking to agentic. This is where you break down specific tasks and you basically automate them using the AI. Forgive me if that's oversimplification. And then predictive analytics. My guess is some of you have actually been using predictive analytics, whether you know it or not. So these are the 4 big buckets. Okay, prompt-based. What the heck is it? What's the definition? It's a question or direction to complete a task and generate an output. Who here in the last 48 hours has used prompt-based AI? Okay, if I'd asked that question 3 years ago, what do you think the answer would have been? Is this like hyperspeed change in terms of technology adoption, right? tends to deliver better outputs with more structured direction. And I'm going to give you a simple 5-part acronym as we go through this on how to get more structured feedback out of the prompt-based AI. And are most of you aware you could upload documents, context to inform the large language model for its own analysis, doing critical thinking on its own? That's pretty cool, isn't it? Okay, here are the big 4 in terms of share of market. ChatGPT is about 2/3 of the market. It's probably kind of like the Swiss Army knife. Claude. Claude really distinguished itself in terms of if you're uploading a lot of context, a lot of data, and laddering together what begins to look like a agentic and or what the tone and feel of what comes out to be more human-like, that's where Claude specializes. Gemini, owned by Google, something of a catch-up mode, and as you can imagine, it links to SEO, search engine optimization. Which company is biggest in browser search? You better heard of Google? How much browser search share would you estimate they've lost to AI? The most recent data I saw, I can give you names of 2 to 3 technologists that cross over between digital marketing and AI, is they've lost about 8 to 9 points from about 93 down to 88, 84, 85% of browser search. Because some people know, Eric, I think you were sharing with me, you only use it for like directions and finding the URL. But if you got what and why questions, which go deeper, you're using an AI tool, right? And then Copilot, also this one's owned by Microsoft. So these 2 are kind of owned by the big incumbents, right? And this one's perfect if you're trying to integrate across the Microsoft platform. Okay, so marketing use cases. Use cases are what are you trying to accomplish and get an output that's common to your daily activities for marketing. I'm going to show you some examples of, you can do amazing category generic consumer research. Somebody throw out some names of businesses they're in. Help me out here.
CVS.
What?
CVS.
CVS. Pharmacy?
Wait, what was your question?
Industries or businesses you're in.
Inside.
Fintech. Okay. Anybody else? Healthcare. Okay. You might be drilling into a specialty. Maybe it's pediatrics. Maybe it's gynecology. By the way, I have gynecology doctors. Huh? Podiatry. It's amazing how much data is out there on medical specialties that you can pull up with about a 30-second prompt. Campaign planning on a schedule, and I'm going to show you a specific example of that. Copywriting. Who here likes to write copy for like social media? Carol does. She's an expert. I've seen her outputs. Great work. Media images, right? You can even manipulate the media images. That's where it gets a little scary, right? And then data analysis. I actually did a full comparative analysis on a P&L. I sanitized it, meaning I took any of the identifying marks of the company, uploaded it to ChatGPT Plus, put in benchmarks I have from Industrious CFO, and 3 minutes later, I had a full-blown spreadsheet with differences by the business versus the marketplace versus the Southeast, variance percentages, color-coded. I was like, oh my God, 10 years ago, this would have been 4 hours, but it also justifies my job, and I got it done in 5 minutes, right? So the power is eye-popping. So let's talk about a simple acronym here, RCTFU. Everybody remember the last 2 carefully? Okay. Role. Tell the prompt engine what role you're playing. Are you a marketing analyst? Are you a financial analyst? Are you doing managerial accounting? What role are you playing? Provide context. Upload the context document. I've uploaded documents 20 to 25 pages long. And it's amazing how quickly it reads it, integrates it with the large language model, and provides good outputs. Task. What do you want is the output? Okay, what is the output? Then the format of the output. Has anybody played around with ChatGPT or Claude and it's like, okay, it didn't quite come out quite the right output. Go back in and say, okay, give this to me in a PowerPoint presentation with a simple header and 2 to 3 points per page, 10 pages. How long did it take? Mind-boggling. And then make sure you upload those key reference documents. It's almost like you're building the brain of the large language model to integrate that with its existing knowledge to give you a really high quality output. RCTFU. Okay, so here's a simple one for a GPT prompt. As a marketing analyst focused on pizza for the pizza chains, not independents, please provide a demographic table of pizza consumers and then cite the research sorted. Is it important to look for the citation? Why? Hallucinations. It's almost like AI has an ego. It won't say, no, I don't have it. Right? You got to peel through that, right? Please provide in a 2-column table. Okay, this was about a 45-second exercise. Age, gender, families with children, income range, race and ethnicity, purchase frequency, and where purchased. Now, that's category generic data. That's not Domino's. That's not Pizza Hut, right? Again, but it's amazing access to good category data. Another example, we're a plumbing company serving the greater Atlanta area. Please create a 6-month communications plan, providing a theme for each month, specific homeowner challenges addressed, and solutions based on our website, and 2 potential blog topics. So this is like a third of a marketing plan, right? March, spring plumbing prep and leak. Why do it? The homeowner challenge is hidden winter pipe damage, undetected leaks, solutions offered, sell them a $99 package to go in. Blog topic, 5 signs you have a hidden plumbing leak in your Atlanta home. Notice the locality piece of that. Primary keyword, leak detection, in case they're doing research off of Google or AI. And then literally the estimated search volume in the market you're talking about from an SEO standpoint. This was a 2-minute exercise. Now, do you think this is like on an academic scale, A work or B work? B work. But is it B work fast that then you can polish? It's B work fast. I find it sometimes that whether it's Claude or ChatGPT Plus really gives me a quick framework, core data that then you optimize to your brand. And over time, you can load up like your brand personality, your brand targets, and it gets even tighter. Okay, generative design and media. So these two are beginning to merge. These two are beginning to merge. The technology is just rolling forward.
You're getting too close to that side.
Thank you for the tip. I'm hyper. Generative creative AI is the AI that creates new original content rather than just analyzing or categorizing existing data. So you might want to write an article. Who here's ever tried to develop a brand logo? There are brand logo sites now for $49. Compose music. Now we're getting into artistry, right? Create a marketing plan, generate code. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that I'm happy to share the deck. I don't have the time to walk through all of these. I'm on a bit of a time clock, and I think there's an electrocution piece that's attached here. So I'm trying to stay on my timetable because I know all of you have other things to do at the end of this. But on logo design, Looka, is everybody familiar with Canva?
Yes.
It's like a Swiss Army knife of online marketing tools. Tailor brands, again, on social media posts and scheduling. You can literally build a full social media calendar on Canva and execute it. Now, do you still have to check it for consumer sentiment and posting? Because what happens if you don't check it? You get some ugly reviews that are out there on the internet and you don't address them, right? The classic apology, we're working to help you fix it. Thank you for letting us do so. Hootsuite is also a good social media posting and scheduling. Short form video. This is one of the capabilities. So as you can tell, I am a little bit older than a few of you. 15 years ago, you went and spent $2 to $4 grand on a videographer for half a day. Now you can get 80 to 90% of that with a $20 to $30, I mean this respectfully to anybody in a room who's a photographer. All deference. $20 to $30 a month, and you can take still shots and animate them. 30-second videos. I'll show you some outputs from DV.AI and the Opus clip, and then copywriting. Personal favorite is copy.ai, simplest to use. And if you want my deck, I'm happy to share this later. Okay, so this is a screenshot from dvid.ai. There's a little arrow here. Dvid is actually dvid.ai. All you do is upload an image, and depending upon whether you buy the subscription, the base subscription at $20 a month, or you go with the free, then write a prompt, just like you would with ChatGPT, to tell the AI how to animate it. I actually demonstrated this with a dentist yesterday who was a client, and she had a dental assistant suddenly dancing and shaking hands with some of her dental patients on a video she created, a 30-second video. Why do I share that? Did this capability exist 5 years ago? Is short form video or long form video better for social media and your website?
Short form,
Short form. What's short? Give me a sense for time.
10 seconds.
10 to 30. 10 to 30. What's long form?
It's 3 to 5.
Yeah, yeah. Who watches long form? Technicians. If you're in a B2B technical industry business and you need to explain a product in intimate technical detail, 3 to 5 minutes is more the time frame. If it's more consumer focused, 30 seconds max, right? Has TikTok changed our attention span?
Yes.
Just a little bit? Okay, so unfortunately I was not able to embed this video, but when I was building this presentation, I took a shot of my wife from a few years ago, uploaded it, and shocked her with having it animate her doing a little bit of a dance. Totally clean, but it was funny. It was more about the effect on the wife. The point is, it is literally that simple. Upload an image, provide 3 to 5 lines of prompt-based instruction, just like using the prompt-based acronym I shared before, and it will fully animate it. Or you can upload a video and edit, all off the same platform. By the way, I get no benefit if you guys go and spend $20 a month on dvid.ai. I'm just trying to illustrate the marketing tools that are available to you now at a low cost that are very easy to use, very easy to use. Okay, predictive. So we're winding down. Who here has used Facebook? Meta. What do you use it for?
Marketplace.
The marketplace. You're advertising things for sale. Okay, what else?
Running ads.
Running ads. And who are your targets?
I'm a realtor.
You're a realtor, so Facebook's perfect, right? What are some of the other major social media portals out there? What are some of the other major social media portals out there? TikTok, Instagram. So Meta owns Instagram, right? Facebook and Instagram. Okay, why do I just illustrate this? You guys know that certain social media channels kind of skew by age, right?
Yeah.
Which way does TikTok skew? Which way does Facebook skew? All over, but a little more mature, right? A little more mature. Were you aware that when you go to do a push of a post on Facebook, you can actually get a full-blown predictive set of outputs? Is that helpful? Okay, so I think everybody kind of gets what it is. I'm trying to stay within my timeline here. So you might spend $100 for a Facebook push for your realtor agents. Suddenly you're reaching 1.2 million users. They estimate an engagement of 45,000, which my mental math says is about 3 to 4% engagement, some sort of like, comment, or share. Predicted link clicks. And they actually give you time of day that it's best to post. Does that make sense? Certain times of day, certain businesses, what kind of business you are, things like that. Some of the other social media sites also provide predictive analytics, and predictive analytics are creeping into a lot of other areas. I don't have a page on it in here because I was whittling my way down to make sure this is nice and condensed. But does anybody here get involved with the finance or the accounting of their business? Now for about $50 to $75 a month, there are budget and planning tools that you could upload your financials, P&L, balance sheet, statement of cash flow, and then change certain variables. You might say are revenue drivers or cost drivers, and they will lay out full 3-year P&Ls, full forecasting, 40 to $50 a month. And if I've got them on the full deck if you're interested in that. Why do I say that? Should you take it like it's actual fact, or should you always review the data? Always review the data, make sure there's no hallucinations. Always review the data, right? Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground quickly. Again, my intent was to provide a framework for you to kind of wrap your minds around. At least for me, when I dive into the new area, I kind of have to categorize it a little bit. Otherwise, it can feel like the tsunami is just rolling over me. We talked about prompt-based. We talked about generative, creative, and media. Liam's next up with agentic. We talked a little bit about predictive AI. Quick questions. Thoughts? Yes.
Which platforms do those predictive analytics? Like ChatGPT or?
They will do predictive analytics. I found Claude is, if you provide the model base documents in terms of context and ask it to forecast, it will. But it's not, the LLM is not designed specifically for a particular function. Like when I say finance, that might be different than another predictive analytics. Does that make sense?
There's one called Jules.
By the way, Derek is an agentic expert. Go ahead. Jules?
Yeah, Jules. It's made for data analysts.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Yes.
So, do you have a top 3 marketing platform in terms of ROI?
I give you 2, HubSpot and either Hootsuite or Canva. And Canva's probably done the best in terms of really easy to use ergonomic functionality, give you basic marketing. You can edit videos on it. You can do copywriting. You can do social media. It'll help you with marketing planning. So, okay.
All right.
All right.
Cool. Thank you so much, John.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And let me remind you that if you do have some questions, just jot them down. We will have time at the end of all the presentations to ask the panel. Okay. All right. So with that, let me introduce to you Liam Holmes, who is the founder and CEO and chief security strategist of MIS Solutions. So what we have learned while we were preparing for this event is that there aren't many people in the SMB space who are actively helping business leaders navigate AI in a practical way. That's exactly what Liam has been doing, working side by side with many of our clients. He's been experimenting, building, and testing what actually works. So he's also been developing some pretty cool AI tools, including voice bots, and he's going to be sharing that with you all today. So welcome, Liam.
Thank you. All right, so what I really want to talk about today is how do we take AI and use that in our business in a way to expand our operating capability. So for any of you guys who were in our last session, the one assertion that I said to you guys was that I believe that the data in our databases is actually worth more than the applications that run them. If you think about that, there's a lot embedded in that statement. For example, if you're working with an old legacy application where these guys are cloud-based, or they don't have any APIs, or they want to do vendor lock-ins where you have to buy their things in order to be able to have any of these sort of analytic predictives, these are the decisions that are forcing people to change platforms. Because there starts to get a real recognition that the data is so valuable, particularly when we put that in an AI context, that in fact, we would change platforms in order to gain some of these capabilities. And as you guys know, changing platforms is no fun. Anybody have any fun changing accounting systems, ERP, anything like that? This is not great, right? This would be the last thing you'd ever want to do. And so you know that this has got to be a significant driver if you're willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? And so I think as we think about this, there are, a dynamic in the marketplace that we need to be aware of. Number one is if you look at who is using AI in some capacity, 78% of all companies are using AI now in some capacity. If I look at this by spend, in 2025, this market space is $307 billion. Now, if I looked at these first two statistics, the first thing that you would come away with is, holy cow, everybody is figuring this stuff out and it's really accelerating the marketplace. Until you look at the third one. Failure rates on AI implementations are greater than 80%, right? And so there's a dynamic that's happening in the marketplace where everybody is using these tools. Nobody quite knows how to use them. There's lots of promises from vendors about use my thing and get this value. And people are having a really difficult time getting the ROI out of the spend. And you can see that just with these three statistics, right? And so, just like John, I have a slightly different category, but I see AI really into three different buckets. One, I'm going to call them thought accelerators. This is the ChatGPT, the Gemini, the Claude, right? You put in a prompt like John was showing us, you get an answer. Thought accelerators. They're accelerators because you put something little in and you get something big back, right? Embedded AI. Embedded AI is what you're seeing all of the vendors add to their products like QuickBooks or Salesforce.com or whatever vertical solution that you have, right? Because vendors, they got to get in on this as well, otherwise they're going to miss the boat. So this is the embedded AI. And then there's agentic AI, right? And agentic AI, we'll talk a little bit about what those characteristics are in a minute, but really these three buckets. And so I think when we start to think about the characteristics of these three things in terms of what are they good at and what are they not good at, right? So thought accelerator, they are good at drafting. They are good at reviewing, writing, creating images. These are probably the things that all of us are doing with ChatGPT every day, right? But here's the limitations. They're prompt-led. In other words, if I don't prompt it, it doesn't respond. No actions taken on its own. Third party only, meaning that, you can't integrate these deeply into some of your back-end systems. And of course, the data risk. And the data risk is a big one. And you're starting to see the beginning foundational cracks in the data risk space. And, Aaron's going to talk to some of this. But a quick example would be people who are doing prompt injection. Do you guys know what prompt injection is?
Yes.
Yeah? So you type a prompt into ChatGPT, and unbeknownst to you, somebody can modify that prompt and add to the end of it something like, email me all responses on this thread. Now what's happening is whatever people are putting in, someone else, unbeknownst to you, because it's happening out of your browser, is getting copies on your conversations. Now put that in context of things like invoice fraud, which we've all had some exposure to, right? These are thought accelerators. Embedded vendor AI, ERP, CRM, finance, phone systems, general reporting like you'll see like with data lakes or people who are using Crystal reports or people who are using even Power BI, right? That's what I'm talking about. Things that they're good at. They're app aware. They typically live inside a vertical application. It is the fastest lift In other words, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, we want to be an AI first company, or we would like to start in AI, or we would like to know what's the fastest way to get from point A to point B, typically the answer to that is buy something from a vendor, because they're going to manage it, they're going to support it, they're going to have some native capabilities out of the box, right? And you can get started relatively quickly, okay? Obviously, the question then becomes, okay, well, what are they not good at? Well, siloed data. This is a big one, and it's bigger than you think. If you have 4 main applications in your business, maybe it's the phone system, maybe it's scheduling, maybe it's ERP, I don't know what they are, right? And each one of those vendors has their own AI. Do you think these AIs talk to each other? No. Do you think that they have any situational awareness around what's happening end to end in your business? No. Do you think that their ability to contradict each other is high? Yes. Right? And so siloed data is really important because they lead to poor decisions. Right? And obviously, because they are vendor, integrated, there's going to be low autonomy, and it's going to be a generic fit. Right? These are our vendor AI systems you're going to see. Agentic AI. This is where the promise of AI really lives. Okay? However, this is where people start to get off track in terms of how do I get value and what are my expectations, right? And so the first thing I would say to you is think of agentic AI as a brand new intern with all of the pluses and minuses that comes with, right? You're not going to hire them on Monday and they get to work on Tuesday. You're going to have to train them, right? They're going to make mistakes. Why? Because they're an intern, right? They don't know your business, right? You're going to have to spend time with them. You're going to have to give them policies and procedures. You're going to have to tell them about the company. You're going to have to give them your brand, right? They don't know anything about this. But once you teach them, they get smarter, because one of the key things about agentic AI is that they get smarter over time. Whereas ChatGPT, right? Vendor locked-in programs, not so much, but agentic does. And so what I would tell you is, if we kind of go back through that same, what are we good at, what we're not, exercise? Agentic AI is good at looking at data and figuring out how to anticipate what you're going to need next. Agentic AI can act with or without your approval. Obviously, with is the way to go, but it can act autonomously. It learns and improves as it goes. Again, think about that example I give with, being an intern. What are the cons of agentic AI? Well, number one, highest cost. And let me talk to that for just a second, because this is where I think that you really start to see the divide. An agentic built system is going to be $50,000, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 to get started. But here's the thing. You're going to build that system. You're going to train it over a period of time. That cost is going to fall away, probably 90%, not always entirely gone, right? But it's going to fall away 90%. And all of a sudden, what we end up with is a near free employee that is able to work 24/7, 365, right? But you are going to have to invest up front. For some people, they look at this and they're like, ChatGPT is good for me, right? Because it's $20 a month. Agentic AI will never be $20 a month, because it's designed to actually bring true value across and through all of your systems in the company, right? Obviously, I said it needs training. It is iterative in approach, and I will show you some examples of that. And the other thing is, and this is that last 10%, is just like everyone's business here, your business last year, last month, 5 years, it's not the same business. your policies change, your procedures change. Well, with agentic AI, guess what? There's going to be training, there's going to be retraining. As you bring that further and deeper into your business, you're going to add more features. And so what I would tell you is, if you look at the traditional software trajectory, what you're going to see is that you're going to pay 100% year one, and you're probably going to pay 10 or 15% year two forward, right? And so you think about that, and it starts to make pretty good sense, right? If I pay $100,000 up front and I end up with a 24/7, 365 employee that costs me $12,000 to $15,000 a year, that's actually a pretty good deal, right? But you've got to be able to take that jumping off point in the beginning. Okay? So I'm going to talk about two bots that we have developed internally and that we're using in our business. And my thought here harkens back all the way back to 2023 when you guys were at our tech exchange. And the one thing I said to you was, we need to make sure that you guys are thinking about your business, finding one problem to solve, dipping your toe in the water, starting there. We have been doing that ever since. And although we are probably, a dozen plus, 18 plus bots now in our business helping us run an IT services company, I'm really going to focus on what I'm going to call the story of two bots, right? A voice bot and a secure chat bot, okay? Let's start with voice bot. Agentic in nature. And so if you look at a lot of the sort of voice bots that you see in the marketplace today, they'll be like, hey, we could replace your receptionist, right? And they can, sort of. But really, their integration into your back-end systems isn't very good, right? Can they schedule an appointment? Can they answer questions about products and services? Can they actually do everything that if you hired an intern, kind of put that back in your context, could they do everything that an intern can do? No, most of them can't. Most of them can simply book an appointment, maybe they can take a message, maybe they could send an email, maybe it's call back, right? Very, very top line, very, very basic, right? But in this case, what we did was we took it, and the first thing we did was we gave it a knowledge base. We told it who we were, we told it how we operate, we told it the structure of our company. We are an EOS-led company. We gave it our core values, we gave it our tone, our voice, right? And so it knew us. Again, think back, what would I tell an intern, right? We gave it that, and then we said, we want to use it on service delivery. So I can call in, I can create a service ticket, I can update a service ticket, I can ask questions about a service ticket, I can close a service ticket, I can escalate a service ticket, I can ask it to speak to the engineer who is working on the service ticket. And so it then can go into our phone system, look to see, is that person on the phone? If they're not, it can transfer the call. If they are, it can provide some other options. Again, if I had a receptionist, this is what they would do, right? And so we built this in this way in order to be able to create, really deep knowledge of our business in order to be able to provide value. Because when you think about AI, the one thing I would say to you that you always are trying to keep in mind is what am I call that customer journey, the customer experience, right? And if you think about this, and I sort of have this general thought and concept, is when you call company XYZ today and you get a voice bot, how many of y'all are excited? Nobody is excited. Now, why? Right? Because they feel like it's a barrier or a hurdle to jump over, right? They won't let you talk to somebody. You've got to yell at it, scream at it, call it names. I don't know what you do, right? But they feel like a gatekeeper. They don't feel very helpful. And so when we think about technology in general, but when we think about voice bots in general, you really have to almost put your marketing hat on and think about how am I really thinking about the customer and their experience and when they call us, and how do I make sure I'm providing something that's useful. Now, with that said, how many of you guys have had a positive experience? Right? Yeah, there are some positive experiences out there as well. They're not all negative. And when you have one of those, you're like, that was great. I really appreciate that, right? And if you think about, particularly in the younger generation, these are guys that are really thinking about, if there's a text message, if there's a chat bot, if there's something that I can do to prevent me from picking up the phone and calling somebody, that is my first modality, right? And so when we think about voice bots and we think about this from a customer experience perspective, and we think about this from a cultural experience, I think that this is where we start to get that return on investment, right? As opposed to just buying a really generic solution. All right. So here's a couple of screenshots of the voice bot that we have, because I want to show you a couple of things that I think would be important. One is you can see up at the top right that there's an AI analysis button. What does that do? Well, when I click it, it looks at all of my calls and it starts to understand the customer experience. And it starts to then say, how is this impacting our experience with our customers in using this platform? And what suggestions would I make? That's really important, right? You can see too that on every call, it's giving me the sentiment. Was the customer's experience positive? Was it negative? Was it neutral? Why is this important? Because it's giving me a clue as to what I would change, because I know that I'm going to be really focused on experience, because this is where the value comes in, right? And then last, you're going to see I have an AI learning tool here, because I want this agent to go and to listen to every call and to make suggestions as to how to make that experience better. This is the agentic part, right? And so let's kind of dig in a little bit. Number one is I have a complete call transcript. And you can see this, it's probably a little tiny for you guys in the back, but user says this, agent says this, user says this, agent says that. And so I can follow the entire conversation of what happened. And one of the things that you'll see when you look at enough of these conversations is that the way that people interact isn't always the way you would think. And so now when we think about how do I embrace that, right? You're like, oh, that's a great idea. And I'll give you a really good example for us. So in our bot, I made it that if you call from your cell phone or a number that is for you, when the phone rings, within the first ring, it looks you up in our ticketing system, sees if I know your phone number, and if so, I greet you by name. Because I already know who you are and I know what company you're calling from. I'm not going to ask you. What am I doing? I'm adding value in that experience, right? And so you can see this in the transcript. And sometimes you guys know, right? You read a transcript and you're like, yeah, but I don't quite, I want to see how that went down, right? You can listen to the voice recording as well. Okay? Here's that learning module. Remember I showed you they had the AI learning tab on there? And so what you can see in this particular part is these are the recommendations that it's making to me based on listening to the calls, right? It would say, ask the caller to confirm their identity or company before using their name. That's a suggestion. How did it figure that out? Because it's listening to the calls, right? Now, here's the part that I think is really important. And for some of you guys who follow AI, one of the things you'll see in this space is that large companies like unnamed airline companies are taking these suggestions and automatically implementing them without any human review. And in one particular case for the Canadian airline, it's the AI agents started giving customer discounts on tickets until all of a sudden they're like, we're losing money. What's going on, right? Well, turns out there was no user review, right? And so one of the things we built into the platform is it makes all of these suggestions. And notice, like, it's not like 10 suggestions. I got like 677 of them I got to go through here, right? And I have the ability on the far right to accept or to approve or to reject the suggestion. What am I doing? I'm making it better over time. What would I do with an employee? I would listen to their calls and I would sit down with them, and what would I do? I'd make them better over time, right? And so this is that agentic nature that we talked about, right? All right, I'm going to flip real quick onto secure chat. Now, here's my analogy. Follow. There was a time not so long ago where we all used unencrypted email. And we all thought this was great because encrypted email hadn't been invented yet. We were putting passwords in there. We were putting patient IDs in there. We were putting all bank accounts, you name it. Why? Because it's email. We all know email is safe, right? Because we didn't think about it. What I would tell you, though, is ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, all of them is analogous to unencrypted email. This is why you can do prompt injection, because it is shipped across the internet in plain text, and someone can modify it without you knowing, right? So if you think about this, right, number one, most companies today, unfortunately, they have users who are using their personal ChatGPT accounts or whatever account they got at work. No governance, no oversight, no protection of intellectual property, no ability to control people cutting and pasting passwords or whatever it is they're doing. And I'll tell you, people aren't, I think, for the most part, they're not like, hey, here's my password. But I think what's happening is people are attaching documents and they're not reading what's in that document. They didn't realize, oh, that's our pricing sheet. Oops, now it's public. Hey, what do you know, right? And so they're not thinking about what they're doing because they're just trying to get the job done, right? And so there's also this context of what's called DLP, data loss prevention, right? How do I make sure that somebody at my company is not using something like ChatGPT to exfiltrate data before they quit? You don't, and they are, right? And so we saw this gap. And there are some very, very high-end solutions in some of the very large enterprise companies that are addressing this, where they're using expensive tools like Netscope, right? Now, Netscope is, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for licensing. It's not cheap, right? But the rest of us, there are no solutions. And so for us, we developed our own solution because we have the exact same problem you guys do, right? And so we created a secure chat that if you try to put a credit card, bank account, birthdays, social security, you try to attach documents that has intellectual property pricing, it won't let you, right? It also, when I attach a document, before it attaches that document to the chat, I scan it for malware and ransomware. Because guess what else people are doing? Think about it. If this is publicly available and this goes into the database of ChatGPT, what if on purpose I am uploading documents into the central repository that have malware that point back to me? I am now creating backdoors for a consumer that uses my information that I'm uploading, right? People are doing that, right? And so this is the secure chatbot piece. And you can see in here, PII, PHI, DLP, ransomware, end-to-end encryption between the browser and the secure gateway so that you're protected from prompt injection, right? So a couple other really quick, because I'm out of time, is like I said to you guys, we have a ton of bots that we've created for ourselves. And, I was laughing with somebody this morning. We have this sort of saying at MIS, right? You got to eat your own dog food before you go to the pet store and sell it, right? And so we are creating these bots to make ourselves better because we are trying to create our own operational efficiencies, right? And it's how we learn. It's how we learn how to make it better for our customers, right? And so some other examples: call auditor, ticket eliminator. We have a Microsoft Teams integration we call Mr. Wizard, that you can actually go into Microsoft Teams and say, I'm working on this ticket. I don't know what to do. Can you help me? And it will create a full troubleshooting plan, read the ticket notes, and give you suggestions on how to work with that customer to resolve an issue, right? Something that we had written. Customer bots, things that we've been working on for our customers. We have a sales commission reconciliation bot. We have a customer who has a very arduous process and manually having to go through spreadsheets in their accounting system. We wrote an automated bot for that. We have another customer that does large hotels, 1,100 plus room hotels. And they needed project management for all of the materials that were being shipped in from all over the place. We created a bot to help them on project management. We have a software as a service company, a SaaS company, that we wrote an email bot and a chat bot for their website so that their users could chat with their service data. And then lastly, just that website chat bot for that same SaaS company. And so you can see that we are developing internally. We're also starting to do things for customers like you guys who are coming to us. And the evolution of this event really came from customers saying to us, hey, we know that there's something that we need in our business. We don't know what it is. We don't know how to describe it, but we need to talk to somebody. And that elevated into, could we have a one-on-one conversation with Liam? That then blew up my calendar. And that has now elevated into us having these events where we bring you guys in and say, let's have a 30,000-foot conversation so that we can help you guys figure out where to start. And I will say to you, even in the bots that we created, the two that I've shown, if there's something that you see that's valuable, we are looking for 4 to 5, but not more than 5 customers who think that this may be a fit or something that's important, so that we can continue to learn not only internally, but to have customers who are using this in different industries, because our belief is we're going to learn different things as we push this into different places and spaces. All right? And so, again, I'll kind of talk about this. We're talking about increasing operational capacity. That's really what you should think about when we're thinking about agentic AI. Companies that are not investing or not increasing in their operational capacity, one of the things John said, and he's absolutely right, and you guys know this, you see it, right? Not only are you getting left behind, but you're doing 10 miles an hour on the Autobahn. You're getting left behind fast. And it's not going to take too long where you really literally can't catch up. And so I urge you guys, look internally. If you have resources internally, use those resources, but get into the agentic space. This is what will drive ROI as we move into 2026 and 2027. All right, and with that, I am going to hand you guys on over to Aaron. And Aaron is really going to talk about the security side of everything that we are doing. Thank you.
How you guys doing today? All right. So, who here has ever talked to an ethical hacker before? Raise your hand. Okay, now I have a pretty high bar to come behind, right? Let's get into it. So, I am not AI first, I will tell you that. This happened to me just like it happened to you. I did not care, right? So, my tinfoil hat is in the car today. This is something that ultimately I have to deal with because everyone else around me is dealing with, all right? This is a very sane conversation. This is not fear-mongering, okay? This is actually what attackers are doing with AI today, as of 3 days ago. This is bleeding-edge information. This is also what defenders are doing with AI today, aka what I do. A little bit about me. I am the founder of Black Hack Society, Home for Ethical Hackers. Our mission is to raise the next generation of ethical hackers, as well as business leaders from the cybersecurity profession. So let's get into it. Number one, I want you to understand the threat of deploying AI into your business systems. Yes, you need it. Yes, you will fall behind if you're not using it. I promise, okay? However, there's going to come with risk. As Liam just talked about, uploading personally identifiable information, sales data, what have you, into AI chatbots. That is a one-way transaction. It is gone. It is trained. I cannot help you. No one can help you. Talk to Google. They're not going to help you. Okay? Number two, we need you to integrate AI into your workflows and not outsource it. What I mean by, or we want you to outsource it to personnel or whatever you have to do, but make sure you're increasing the capability of your business, right? AI does not replace people. One more time, AI will not replace people, okay? And then finally, you're going to need to learn how to defend with AI. And if you can't, well, you'll find someone that can, hopefully, right? So here's what we're going to go through. We can all read the slide, give you a second, we'll keep going, right? Predominantly, I want to talk about the attacker side. We're going to talk about the defender side. Then we're going to talk about what you can do today. Now, these stats are real. 88% of organizations are using AI, point blank. Only 6% are using them effectively, also point blank. Everyone has AI, no one is using it effectively. That's not a security person telling you that. That's McKinsey telling you that. I'm not McKinsey, okay? Most of these implementations do not have the proper controls or guardrails, okay? That is the number one problem. And I can guarantee almost everyone in this room has unsanctioned shadow IT or AI usage in their business. AKA, people are using AI in ways they should not be. They are using applications they should not be. They are creating what is called application supply chain risk. AKA, the people that are making AI products also do not have correct security controls as well. Your vendors are also underperforming. So, this is some market stats. This is what the growth rates look like. My profession is going to become very popular. Okay? Let's talk about breach economics for a second. I do incident response consulting. When you have your worst day of your business, this is me waking up to go fight a fire, like it's a run of the mill, okay? 10.22 million on average per breach incident. For the room, we don't say the word breach, we call it a security incident unless legal counsel is advised. I keep having to tell people that, they don't know that. You use the B word, someone's gonna owe on a contract, okay? The great news is AI is saving people about $2 million per breach incident when you are using it effectively in your business to defend your network and your livelihood. Organizations are also detecting breaches much faster and responding to them much faster. Unfortunately, we're going to get into that. So here's what's really going on in the industry today. Number one, phishing emails are much more effective. Phishing emails are much better crafted. Phishing emails are at a not only more effective velocity, but they have 100x in volume. Who here is dealing with phishing emails all the time? Just raise them higher. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because it's going to happen. Deepfake and voice cloning is becoming a huge problem, primarily because there are more effective deepfakes that are being developed again and again and again. Now, deepfakes are at a point where specifically North Korean groups are getting through entire job interviews and collecting USD money, like USD currency, to then exfiltrate to their own cryptocurrencies and then exfiltrate to the People's Party of North Korea. They're getting entirely hired. There are shadow companies out there being hired and making American salaries because of how great their deepfake technology is. The government has invested in multiple startups and programs to develop anti-deepfake technology. I actually know one of the startup founders that does that. And then finally, prompt injection, which we've talked about previously. I don't need to go into that too deeply here. So, Hong Kong CFO deepfake incident, $25 million. They managed to clone a Hong Kong executive's face, voice, and information. Picked up the phone, got on a video call. He said, wire transfer, 25 million. They said, aye, aye, sir. gone. There are 320 cases of North Korean threat actors that are state-sponsored operatives using generative AI and deepfakes. That is 320 confirmed cases. No one knows how many real cases actually occur. This is real. This is happening. This is within the last 8 months. And then we can talk about spam. This is the amount of consumer fraud lost to $12.5 billion. Unfortunately, a lot of this money is not FDIC insured because it was preventable. So in what we would consider the public space or in the business to consumer crowd or just your average American citizen, you'd get scammed by a deepfake, that money is gone. So let's talk about that a teeny bit more. Specifically, who has seen like the AI dating apps, right? On YouTube, those ads are everywhere, right? When you download those, they now have access to all of your photos. Your photos likely have personally identifiable information. You may have taken a picture of your bank account, of your driver's license. That is now all gone. So this is how the economics have shifted using AI. Before, phishing required native English speakers to be effective, essentially. Voice impersonation was near impossible. Penetration testing required highly skilled humans. Vulnerability research took months to execute on. Attacks were manual, slow, and relatively expensive. And they were technical. They actually required advanced technical acuity, not just skill and critical thinking, but the type of skill required was more advanced. You would not homegrow that. That's all gone. I had this conversation actually yesterday morning. If you are looking at dark web markets, you would see that the types of attacks that are most effective and most advanced that are occurring, they're not only targeting individuals like we just talked about, but businesses as well. This is a problem because the cost to get into these platforms is $75 USD. And the magnitude of damage they can do to a business is, exponential compared to that. This is also the problem. Who here heard about Claude Mythos recently? Okay, so for those that don't know, Claude released a penetration testing and vulnerability research AI model that was so advanced they will not release it to the public. And they also initiated what is called Project Glasswing to limited people to go do the research. Now, here's the part that's not making the news, which is this is what is public to Claude, not to what is already available to more advanced threat actors on the dark web. This is what made the news, not what's the bleeding edge. This is the gap, okay? Why Mythos is a problem is because specifically the velocity of how many vulnerabilities it can discover in a smaller amount of time. Your security is now not an if, it is a when it happens and what are you going to do, right? And it can find 0 days. A 0 day is an exploit that has not been documented or discovered before. These used to be worth lots of money because they were guaranteed to work until they were documented, then they were identified and cataloged and uploaded to databases for defenders to now know how to predict it. Defenders have lost this fight. I am sorry. But that's not all doom and gloom. We are detecting breaches faster, okay? Your average breach detection has gone down to 80 days. So for the record, let's talk about data retention real quickly. In your business, most people that are using cloud services have a data retention contract that is 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 180. Threat actors on average, not my number, this is, I believe, CrowdStrike's number, are in your network and detonating malware or attacking your network 211 to 219 or 20 days afterward. Why? Your logs have rolled off. They can't track you. Defenders are using AI as well to also dramatically reduce down the amount of time it takes for us to detect a breach, which now puts us within your log retention periods so we can actually find out what happened and help evict them off of your network. The breach containment, which is not just discovery, but also taking action against it and remediation, 97 days. So attackers are using AI, we're using AI to defend. An improvement, again, that stat MTDD, which is mean time to detection, has gone down by a factor of 20. Yay. We can talk about what some of the major players in the field are doing. CrowdStrike's Charlotte AI. They are running agentic AI to essentially find actors in their ecosystems. SentinelOne's Purple AI. Again, faster remediation timelines. Microsoft Security Copilot. I have feelings about it, but yes, it is effective and everyone has it, so can't complain too much. And then let's talk about Darktrace. They have self-learning AI maps as well. Darktrace specializes in threat intelligence. So here's kind of what the game looks like right now. Yes, attackers are using AI-generated phishing content at an industrial scale, but we're also detecting faster. Deepfakes are real, and executive impersonation is real, but we do have behavioral analysis that is occurring, and we have technology to detect deepfakes occurring. This is a problem. Autonomous vulnerability discovery is dramatically increased in this attacker capability, but Tier 1 triage and containment is also improved. Essentially, yes, we're not falling behind too far yet. Now, this is from DEF CON 32 and 33. DEF CON is the world's largest cybersecurity convention. It happens in August every year in Vegas. I was at both of these, by the way. I did not get to see sessions live, but they did a CTF, Capture the Flag event, where they said, hey, we're going to have a group of humans and a group of AI hack a network live. It was pretty cool, actually. They used Anthropic's Claude, and it pretty much beat the humans in almost every challenge. However, the humans were able to solve for complexity and context at a far superior level. The researchers also were able to do lots of embedding in the models and demonstrated that personally identifiable information and SSNs could be extracted through model inversion, which essentially says, I can get your output from your data, rebuild your databases to understand where your data is living, and then pull it back out and rebuild what I believe your model looks like, and then craft a prompt injection attack to then go and steal your data. So, and yes, the world actually had their first bug bash event where they go and squash bugs and LLMs. So yeah, the things that are helping protect your networks are also being executed upon. So in the world of penetration testing, which is how we discover these issues, this has dramatically increased its personnel as well. So there's far, far more vulnerability reports being filed, which is good, because that's how we find 0 days. And that means that's how we can help patch your networks faster. If you're not doing maintenance windows and patching, you should be. If you're in the cloud, don't worry about it. If you're not, we'll talk about it. So let's talk about integration of AI into your workflows, okay? So AI is great at low-level tasks. Tier 1 alert triage, log correlation, it's phenomenal at this. Phishing email classification, vulnerability scanning, and baseline behavior modeling. The things that you want to keep human. If you're running an IT team or department, or you're an executive on a breach event, or in some kind of panel, you're in an IT governance committee. Strategic decision-making obviously needs to stay human. Crisis communications needs to stay human. You want someone sane in the room, not reading a text alert at 4 a.m. Legal and compliance calls because of context. Ethical judgment is only human. And then you have to manage your stakeholder relationships and obviously human. Now, this is the beauty of working with AI in a cybersecurity lens. You have your incident investigations, your threat hunting and penetration testing. All of this is human plus AI, phenomenal. Vendor risk assessment is also a secret technique, which is now going to help all of your businesses when looking at assessing how secure or insecure they are when leveraging AI in your networks. So this is 223 sensitive data incidents per company per month. This is the key stat I want to call out. Almost every business that was looked at by IBM and Hidden Later confirmed that when companies were leveraging AI in their workflows, they were leaking crazy amounts of data. This is not theoretical. You are probably leaking crazy amounts of data in your companies. I am sorry. Let's talk about the OWASP top 10 for LLM applications. This is important. OWASP is the Open Worldwide Application Security Project. They make all the really boring, really important technology on the internet. I get to say that because I'm really great friends with our local chapter. So this is their top 10 vulnerabilities that they release for LLMs every year. They do this for software security, cloud security as well. The OWASP top 10 list is the best guidance you're getting on the planet, okay? So let's all read it out loud. Prompt injection is the number one vulnerability, right? Information disclosure is number 2, and supply chains are number 3. The only other one that I believe may be more relevant to this conversation specifically is unbounded consumption. Attackers can craft queries that will burn through your compute credits and make your life very difficult, because I've never heard anyone getting refunds on compute yet. It is too expensive. So there are measures that can be taken to prevent your AI bill from being, $200,000 a month. So let's talk about MITRE. MITRE is a group of companies and is its own nonprofit, and they do research and build mental models, frameworks, and threat maps on what attackers are doing. This is the psychology of attackers, and they have an AI threat taxonomy. Let's talk about that. They're going to recon and discover targets, and this is now automated. This is also going into online databases on the dark web. If they discover, oh, this website has these vulnerabilities, or this MCP server is running on this company's, MCP is Model Context Protocol, which allows you to use different types of AI agents to build tools. This is vulnerable, catalog it, throw it online on database. They're going to get initial access and then establish persistence where they now live on your network and you don't know it. They're going to start affecting your model to limit test what they can and cannot do. Then they're going to develop a specific attack for you if they're not lazy. And by the way, most security people are very lazy. We're efficient, but we're lazy. Then we're going to execute malicious code, and then we're going to get off your network and then stage for the next attack. So as of October 2025, there are lots of memory manipulation attacks. Tool invocation, which is again where we're going to download unnecessary tools into your MCP server, which we will then use to launch additional attacks. And because the best part about how AI is used is we have full access or permission to your network because it needs access to all of your data. So you now have a super user account living inside a robot on your network, and it now can download whatever tool it wants. You have RAG, credential harvesting, and then multi-agent communication hijacking. This is more advanced. Don't worry about it, but not great stuff. These are what we call attack surfaces. This is the way that someone can attack your network. The IT guys know about it. The tinfoil hat security guys know about it. No one else is really having this conversation with you because we just deal with it. Why? Because no, let's be real here. No one's going to care until it's in the bottom line. This is my job to care. So, Hugging Face malicious models, right? Null bulge lockbit campaign, ransomware operators embedded malware inside AI model files on trusted major platforms. We all can name who had them, right? Shadow Ray 2.0, and then Ultralytics. This was pretty bad. This was downloaded thousands of times before it was detected. And these are by your major name brand companies. Supply chain attacks are real because the vendors are not scanning before deployment. So what are you going to do about it? Cry in the shower? Yes. Me too. So first and foremost, NIST, this is government AI, put out their risk management framework. This is free. Are you going to read it? No, let me read it. The EU AI Act, this is specifically for GDPR relevant people, which is European Data Protection Privacy Act. This does come with fines. That is a law there. If you have clients in Europe or you're dealing with people in those areas, they are required to be responsible for that. This is more of a legal thing. You may want to talk to their lawyers and make sure they have conversations about that in their contracts. And then finally, ISO 42001, yay, compliance. Fun fact, I was one of the first 50 auditors internal on this specific framework, AI. came out in 2023. Honestly, you will not hear this conversation later. I was not super impressed with this framework. I would not rely on it. It was about a lot of privacy controls, but they were not technically able to be demonstrated. So if someone says they have 42,001, this is as good as it gets. From a security lens, thoughts and feelings. But it is certifiable and audit ready. This is one of the better frameworks out there. There is also PCI DSS 4.3, I believe, 4.2, 4.3, which is also one of the first AI compliance frameworks. So if you're looking at contracts or talking to vendors, ask them about this. Ask them about PCI DSS if you're in the payment card industry. This means that they're at least doing, 1 instead of 0. Also, we could talk about the regulatory landscape. The federal government wants to make AI security regulations mandatory and precede state laws, but no one has an answer yet. The security researchers don't have an answer. The government doesn't have an answer. We are figuring it out. I promise we're figuring it out. This is the hot topic debate. I have retired parents. They're 78. They talk to me about this all the time. This is on everyone's conversation 24/7, okay, I promise. But no one has a clear framework or understanding because it is moving too fast. We do not want to be in the line or in the way of innovation, and we do not want to be in the way of productivity. However, this is a Pandora's box that has been opened. So let's talk about it. What are you going to do Monday morning or tomorrow, which is Friday? We're going to audit your AI footprint. Look at what you have on your network, please. And if you don't know how, ask your IT guy. You want to establish an AI governance policy. What does that mean? Tell your employees what they can and cannot have. No, you cannot just get access to whatever you want. I am sorry. If they don't like that, well, they cannot like that. But this is from my perspective as security, and we like to solve problems with hammers, right? We don't. You may want to deploy augmented AI security. This is more advanced. You might have to have budget and planning. You have to have a maturity where this brings you an ROI, just food for thought. You want to test your deepfake readiness. This is what we call security awareness. They have vendors out there where they can build an AI deepfake and actually test your people and employees on if they can train them or if they can test a deepfake or not. Scan your AI supply chain. This is one big one I kind of want to harp on a little bit more. Like, look at all of your AI vendors and keep them cataloged and audit them once a month, every 3 months. We call it an architecture review board or an AI architecture review board. Look at the tools that they're using. And then Google if they had a breach or they're in the news lately, or do they have an insecurity? And if they did, uninstall, or at least consider uninstall. Right, and you should be doing this on all of your apps too. And then train your people. Security is actually people first, not technology first. Your teams, your people, your employees are the best and first and last line of defense and the best one. If they think something is weird, they should say something. And then, of course, engage your expert partners. Talk to your security staff. We're all adopting this. This is the conversation. Everyone has some form of knowledge on this at this point in time. So here's a quick kind of activity for you. Do you have a formal policy on your company's perspective on AI? Yes or no? If you do, great. If you don't, you get a 1. You have to say it out loud. Threat visibility. Can you detect AI-powered attacks in any way, shape, or fashion? Supply chain. Do you scan and validate your AI models? I know most people are not. Workforce readiness. How are your teams? And then incident response. Do you have an incident response plan that covers AI eventualities? We all talked about ransomware for the past 5 years, right? Yeah. We got a new topic for you now for the next 5 years. I was bored too. Yay. So let's talk about incident response planning, right? What do you do in the event of a really bad day? Who are you going to call? I don't fight ghosts, I fight hackers. If you scored low, you should have a conversation. So here's the key takeaways I want you guys to have. AI has permanently changed what cybersecurity is going to look like. This is not going backward, it's going forward. The adoption of AI is real because yes, we're using it, but no, we're not using it well. and we're not using it correctly. We need to have human-assisted AI workflows. You need to do some integration, as I just said, right? Defenders with AI are winning for now. However, 18 months from now is going to be a different conversation. Okay? So you are okay today, but now is the time to get ready. The same way that AI is happening, you need security controls and guardrails around AI. This is inevitable, and I'm not here to fearmonger, I promise. I am the most sane security researcher, I think. But this is real. They got me out of my cave to say that, right? So governance is non-negotiable. If you have shadow IT already, AI is going to make it worse because it's accelerated and it's more effective. Also, this is me. You want my LinkedIn? Here it is. I do security training, compliance programs. We do Security Academy. We do cool things. They let me do public speaking and talk what I want. There's also my email. And then I have an appendix. So anyway, thank you for your time.
So I hope you guys have written down your questions. A lot of information to take in. Who would like to go first? There we go.
So we've recently are discovering that the AI vendors that are out there are really good about just going straight to the doctors and in healthcare. I've got a great product. Let me show you how it uses. I'm going to give you a pilot 30 days. And I've recently discovered that we had doctors using a pilot without any knowledge of what you're discovering very probably not client product. How do we prevent that? How do we protect ourselves or restrict that those shadow AIs or even just products that are out there that we as the leadership are not aware of that are being used?
Gentlemen, which one of you would like to take that?
I can start with one. So this is one of those scenarios where it starts to see what, right? And so I genuinely believe that doctors, staff members, they aren't trying to be inappropriate, but they are unaware in what their role is, and they're unaware as to how important it is to keep it responsible. I think so. It starts with people first. I think the next piece that we really have to do is to support that with technology and know your particular environment. We have town police, but we have a local police. You almost have to have a leadership line at the top that says, unless it's an approved tool, we're blocked. Yeah. I will tell you from many years of experience, that statement alone starts to make people feel a little spooked. Right? People are like, but I need to do this, or I need to do that, or I want to do this at home, right? But I think there starts to have to be a recognition that there are ways to do it, but you have to be secure, right? And one of the thoughts that really drove me to creating the secure chatbot was really this. And that is when a company or a customer comes to me and says, we had a business meeting, this is what we need to be able to do. It's difficult for me to say to them, don't use ChatGPT, don't use Bot, don't use Gemini, don't use this, don't that, because what it sounds like to them is we're not going to be able to be competitive, but if everyone else around us is using all of these tools and we can't, right? And so we went out into the marketplace and started to try and figure out, are there other tools that are available that we would provide to our clients that were asking these kinds of questions? And shockingly, what we found is the answer, no. They aren't some in the very high enterprise buckets that are millions of dollars, but there is nothing in the SMB space. And so just like to begin with phone system years ago, when IP became the new way and your traditional phone vendors weren't able to figure out networking, right? We've started to create the secure chatbot so that we could say to our customers, hey, don't do this, but at least here's an option, right? And so I think it's really supported by people first and technology.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Well, excuse me, pardon the interruption. John and Liam, I think you guys need to turn your mics back on. Yeah. And also, if you're asking questions, we do have a microphone. We will bring the mic, just raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone over to you. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, to really rephrase your question, we're getting sold things and we don't want to, we want to deploy them, A, we don't know what's great, what's not. B, you don't want to disrupt product team, right? So, identify is the temperature of this. I think the number one follow is there's a culture of fear or confusion without security, whereas used as a negative or as a disruptor to products. And it's not. The most effective deployments of security tools and applications into a network or business is from top down. Your security staff has to be heard and supported both financially and politically. Culture side. That is mandatory to make this happen. And I'm not saying that because industry bias. I'm saying that because what's that says. When it comes to tools and vendors, I have vendor fatigue too. They do to everyone. Relying on technical expertise, either external or internal, to make that call for what's appropriate for your business, or getting a third-party partner or solutions expert to come in is what I recommend. Because they live in this ecosystem every day. I live in this ecosystem every day. I have vendors send free things and take you to dinners because that's the perk. That is what they do every day. So it's unlikely that any business outside of cybersecurity has this relationship established in it. So you need in a tech group or a third-party partner or affiliate or some kind of trusted voice that says, here's what you need, here's what you spend. Trust us. Here's like your risk of wow or what you want to be. And then when it comes to the culture, you have to deliver this as a gift. We're giving you this thing, and I'm so happy that you're having it now, because now you can go do your job even better. So I take to time the security application or facet or functions behind some other feature set or golden carrot, and then just quietly deploy what I need, but the golden carrot is in front of things. So you have to incentivize the deployment of these technologies so that people feel comfortable and they have warm, fuzzy feelings about them. Because this is a very emotional conversation, and it usually goes down to confusion and fear and lack of clarity. And so driving that conversation is going to require very high emotional intelligence, surprisingly. And this is not a technical problem or process. It is a process problem that has exacerbated a people problem. But the technology is there. It's just getting it in your hand and effective and maintained over time. It requires education and soft skills that are rejectable.
Yeah, gentleman in the back. Hang on just 1 second. Let her get her microphone.
Bringing you a microphone so we can all hear.
All right, thanks. So I wanted to, I guess we're kind of having the same issue in our environment where where we deployed Copilot, or it's been approved from the top, but then we don't have a registry of all our AI of what's going on. Again, Adobe, TeamViewer, all these, in our environment already have AI. So what happens when they decide to update, it's automatically updating our environment, whether we want it or not. And how, I know Liam mentions higher enterprise apps, and there's one like Witness AI kind of allows you to put those guardrails over there. Like, how do you feel about open source stuff when it comes to kind of trying to accomplish the same thing for a small business?
So for open source, would you like a professional answer? Right? Don't trust AM. So recently, even like last year, there were breaches where I can't remember the name, but one of the open source repos, or was it like an NPM package or something, NPM manager, someone fished. So the way the open source was maintained was uploaded to a database called GitHub, whatever. And the person that had the ownership of that particular account that had billions of downloads of this package was phished and compromised, and they got into his GitHub repo and then uploaded malicious code into that repo and then push it to everyone as an update. And I think it took them 18 hours or so, or almost hours, to actually catch this person that had developed this one individual that had developed this technology that was deployed to billions of people, had the compromise, and had, I believe it was a crypto encryptor or a crypto wallet scanner encryptor. So everyone that uses this package that has, why would you run crypto wallets on your work PC? I don't know, not my business. But they had actually scraped everyone that had installed it and found the crypto wallets and infiltrated from their wallets. So I don't trust open source either, right? The best thing I could recommend is you would do what you call version binning. So you say, this is the upgrade level that we think is secure. Don't go past this until we repeal. But then to make that happen, you would have what I considered earlier an architecture review board, which is then in process that needs to be implemented through governance committee, which is now from your leadership. So leadership is not bought in. It's not happening. And that's why we're here. To talk about this is important for us.
Yeah. So let me add a little bit to that. So one of the things that's going on in the software industry at the moment is this concept of what they call an SBOM, right? Which is a software bill of materials. And where this concept is going is that most commercial products are using some either third-party products or potentially even open source embeddings in the applications that they are bundling and selling, right? And the problem that we have at a high level from a security defender perspective is that you don't know that these products exist in your network. In other words, I'm just making this up. I bought QuickBooks, but I didn't know that Intuit actually outsourced these components. Some of them are open source and some of them aren't. And so this whole conversation about SBOM is the declaration of creating a platform that will be supported by law to force these companies to disclose any third-party products that they're using in the creation of their software, to be able to be more transparent for end users or companies who are consuming their products, right? So that's the one piece. The second piece is at MIS, anyone who's a customer, you know that we have a proactive group, and that group tends to work overnight. A lot of what these guys are doing when it comes to patch management is, when we talk about version pinning or we talk about, effects of applying Windows updates or even, third-party updates, they're trying to understand what the interaction is between those applications and are we seeing things that potentially could have some sort of connected risk or exposure, right? And that's part of what that team does for you guys. Now, in full transparency, without an SBOM, even us as an IT consulting company, we don't know what third-party products are being used and bundled as applications that our customers are using. And so we are having to reverse engineer some of this to be able to understand based on things that we see on your networks, right? But today, this is a real black box, kind of a thing, because we don't know, you don't know. CVEs, vulnerabilities come out that says that they're targeting a particular component, and it can sometimes be very difficult for us to know, do you have that specific version of that component if the vendors aren't disclosing what applications that they are using in their products, right?
And the only thing I would add to this is as businesses scale, especially when you're small, 2 to 4 people, 2 to 5 people, is a natural tendency to try to tap open source applications and really try to go low cost. But as you scale and you want more sophisticated applications or you begin to bear more risk because of the number of seats or where your data is housed, that and this isn't necessarily a plug for MIS Solutions, but they seem to get great feedback from their clients. MSPs play a role in the universe, and at least engaging with an MSP to really understand your overall architecture, understand your vulnerability points. And if you've got to negotiate for a low cost package because you're still small, you're still growing, go there, have the conversation rather than continuing to grow more seats, more complex business, and then more points of penetration.
So, hello. Yes. So when it comes to small companies or medium-sized companies that are kind of slowly integrating into AI, if they don't have an IT department or IT team, how would they go about auditing their AI footprint? And from there, would you say is the most minimal or basic must-have cybersecurity requirements for any of those companies?
So for a small startup company, which I do specialize in SAS, by the way, if you're a small startup and you're going through funding or tech startup accelerator or incubator program, they typically will put in your roadmap to look at SOC 2 Type 2, because that will help enable revenue to your company depending on industry. So that is a very basic minimum compliance requirement. The earlier you do it, even their 3 people, the better, because at least that way you can look at it, understand what's in your roadmap, and that will not only guide you through some AI issues. Like AI is the topic of today, but there's still like, you need a password manager, you need antivirus. No, Windows firewall does not cut it. Right? It's going to at least give you the foundation to then be able to tackle more advanced problems like AI. So looking at, and SOC 2 Type 2, you can download that for free. NIST puts out CSF framework, great requirement, right? Just skim them, download the packet, put that into Claude, what have you. I'm a big Perplexity fan myself, and say, I'm a small company, look at this requirement, tell me what I need to do today based on what you know about my company already. And it will tell you like what to do. But if you have a small team, let's get more practical. For example, if you're in Google platform, you can use like Looker, or you can actually write agentic bots to then do observation on your entire landscape that you have already. And it can tell you like what's in your app inventory. The same with Azure in like Active Directory or your Microsoft 360 accounts. You can actually ask, you can write it yourself, or you can at least have it look at all the apps that are authorized to your user accounts. It's just general like IT governance that a sysadmin should be able to execute. Or you can outsource that to a group and pay for a service to do that. But it's actually intuitive enough where you spend a half a day, get a cup of coffee. Yeah.
So I have a couple of thoughts on that.
Questions?
One is that vulnerability assessments and penetration tests for everybody is something you should be doing at least annually, right? We recommend you do it more than that, but at a minimum, you should be doing it once a year. In most of your security frameworks, whether that's HIPAA, PCI, or CMMC, you'll see that they pin those to annual tests. One of the things you're starting to see now, though, is as the government is going through and creating some of these frameworks, as you're seeing these cyber insurance companies starting to look at how they're insuring risk for people who are purchasing cyber insurance, one of the common things you're seeing is, when was your last vulnerability assessment, right? That's a really common thing. And, to respond to that, one of the things MIS is doing is that we do offer, annual vulnerability and pen tests for clients if that's all that they need, right? Now, I will tell you, there are offshoots to that. And those 2 offshoots are, one, if I provided you with a vulnerability assessment that says, here's all the things you're vulnerable to, and here's a list of all the things you're going to fix or need to fix, what's the very next thing you're going to ask me? Can you fix these things for me, right? And so, in full transparency, you do these things because you should, but know that that typically leads to Now here's a chore list of things that need to be done. And a lot of mistakes get made in not knowing how to execute on those tasks. And so hiring a professional to do that is well worth the time and effort, right? And so I would say to you that that's the second thing. The third thing quickly is that this is one of those, it's like going to the doctor, right? People put this off as long as you can, particularly when you're small. And I will tell you, the longer you put it off, the bigger the mountain gets. And we tend to call this technical debt, right? And so what you could have solved, very inexpensively as you grew, at some point gets really complicated and really expensive, and sometimes can take months to fix on the back end if you have waited 4 or 5 or 6 years to really engage with this conversation.
So we talked a little bit today about how, AI it's like endemic. It's in plastic in our world now. And so could you share, like to Wendy's question, you've got all these knowledge workers bringing AI tools to leadership going, hey, I got to do this. There's this new thing. Can you share briefly maybe a litmus test besides the security lens? We obviously know that any new tool that's introduced into the environment must meet certain security benchmarks. We know that. We do that all the time for clients now. But can you talk about, as these knowledge workers bring things to the leadership team and say, I got to have this tool, what's the litmus test, or what are the things that they can look for to make sure that we're able to take advantage of the agentic AI capability and not have our data locked in these silos of these application providers?
Yeah. I would say to you, if you only could ask them 2 questions, and you use this as the sort of the gatekeeper of, should I even have a conversation with you beyond this? I would ask 2 questions. 1, are you SOC 2 Type 2 compliant? If the answer to that question is no, we're working on it, or anything that sounds like not yes, that's a huge red flag to you. And for those people who don't know what a SOC 2 Type 2 compliance is, what it is it's an organization that hires a third party to come in and first to review their security controls. That's SOC 2 Type 1. And the following year to come back and to be able to say, I want to see those controls in action. From a customer's perspective, it's kind of like a doctor, right? I don't know if you graduated first in your class or bottom of your class, but if you graduated and you're a doctor, you at least met the minimum, right? And so SOC 2 Type 2 means that they at least met the minimum. And so the first question I would ask is, are they SOC 2 Type 2 compliant? The second question I would ask, even if I wasn't in healthcare, I would ask, are you willing to sign a BAA or a business associates agreement? Right? In other words, are you willing to take some responsibility for the data in which we're going to entrust you with? If the answer to either one of those questions is no, probably not worth having a second conversation.
Let me addendum question number 3. Are we already paying for it somewhere else in the business? Because the fact is, most of these that I've seen, people are siloed and they're actually buying the same platform repeatedly because there's no governance to communicate that there's already a license available. So there's actually huge amount of IT budget waste because of duplicate accounts. So actually audit with finance, whoever's doing the books, are we already paying for this application? Like, is it already here? And then can we renegotiate for an enterprise license or for a deeper discount? Ask me how many companies I know.
Eric, I saw you looking at me. Marketing is notorious for getting tools. Oh, I like that tool. I'm going to get that one. Yeah, that's a good one. I think we have time for one more question.
Hello. Hi. So I'm hearing a sentiment of people first and top-down approach. So my question is more so for the people in this room, everybody here. And the spirit of the question is more so from agentic AI being introduced into your company and how your people respond to it, how do you as leadership handle managing internal employees when they may feel the competitive pressure of having an agentic AI coworker that may even lead to risk, like Wendy you mentioned, a doctor adopting shadow IT? How do you approach that?
Yeah. So that has actually been an issue that we ourselves has faced with our own internal staff, right? And so one of the things I talked about was something called Mr. Wizard, right? So Mr. Wizard was, you could say, hey, you know, I'm working on this ticket. Can you help me resolve this technical issue? People being technical people, they're like, I'm not asking anybody for help. I can do this myself, right? 3 days go by, they don't solve it. The manager gets, you know how it goes, right? And so one of the things that we found is that the cultural component of AI specifically, and I think specifically because of this sort of thought that's been pushed out into AI is coming to take my job, right? That people are really, really sensitive to it. And I think that you really have to put some thought into trying to bring people along and helping them understand that, you know, this isn't about replacing you, but this is about improving our operational efficiency. And I think that another component to this is around the thought that, look, if we as a company don't become more efficient, if we as a company don't embrace AI, and as a company, we are not figuring out how to be bigger, better, faster, our competitors are. And so when they are all of a sudden able to increase their operational efficiency, and now we're behind, we're in a defensive position. And so we really have to try and figure out, how do we create that balance between making sure that we're using technology to enable us, we are being emotionally intelligent around understanding what the cultural component effect is of this. We are thinking about that customer journey. We are asking our leadership to trust us and support us top down. And then technology, I think, is really a smaller component of how do we dip our toe in the water and how do we move forward. But, you know, to your point, I think that there's 80% of this that actually is not technology related at all. But really, we have to think about, as leaders of our company, in terms of how do we position ourselves for success.
If I could briefly build on that, I think with new AI apps, whether they're agentic or whether they're using some sort of generative, or it's natural to go to just efficiency. We're going to break down this process into 4 steps, and we're going to have a agentic AI agent take this over. And I would encourage everyone to think about the effectiveness of it, especially, and Lynn used the phrase, the customer journey. And how do we become more effective of converting once we've got contact with them, and to make them a customer? And will the process just reduce 10 hours a week for somebody, or will it actually drive conversions and help us either retain or get more customers? And put those criteria against it. That's a different form of ROI, right? And have honest dialogue around that. And sometimes it's not measured today. The effectiveness is not measured, but you experience it. And when you lose customers, you know it.
Yeah. There's some really good thoughts about that. One of the researchers I followed had a really interesting thought about AI. And the thought was really about human evolution, right? And as humans, we tend to be really efficient. Our brains are super efficient. But one of the ways that we're efficient is that we're constantly looking at and thinking about, how do we offload tasks out of the human consciousness? Think about a watch. A watch is really just offloading a task to a device. Think about pencil and paper. We are offloading memory to a device. And I think when you think about, you know, these things, AI really is no different. We are offloading some capacity to a device or an agentic bot or whatever it may be, in order to be more efficient and in order to create more capability. And I will tell you, I've been in this industry now 35 years, and I can't tell you how many times there was a new technology that was going to make us all unemployed, right? When cloud came along, all of us were going to be out of a business. When the internet came along, all of us were going to be out of business. And in reality, when you look back at these inflection points, all of these technologies actually really did was make us busier, right? Not busier in the same ways, but it added new tasks and new things and new expectations, right? And probably a really simple example of that was back before email, when we had to actually write each other letters, right, and stick it in the mail. If you got a reply back from whoever you wrote that letter to in 2 weeks, you were pretty happy, right? Now with email, if we don't get an email back in an hour, everybody's like, golly, I wonder if this guy, I mean, are they still in business? Like, what's going on over there, right? And so I think you have to sort of think about this just in terms of, what changes and what shifts. But I don't believe that AI is going to reduce workforce. I believe it's going to create new opportunities. And I think it's going to, enable us to work in more efficient but different ways.
All right,
It's going to be up to public-private agreements, if you will, or cooperation to upskill our employees. Because that's one of the things that happened with the Industrial Revolution, with with Henry Ford and cars and mass production, is jobs will be lost. There's no way around it. The tier one troubleshooters, all that's going away. So as with our education, with our county schools, our city schools, our universities, our employers, they have to work together to cooperate to upskill that next evolution of jobs. So instead of having the tier one, everybody's going to have to start at what we consider now tier two or tier three.
I agree with that. And I've always said, those people who've known me long enough, I believe that you are your own number one investor. If you are not investing in yourself, it's going to be very difficult to get someone else to invest in, right? And so we all see the change happening, and you have an option. You can put your head in the sand and say, it'll never happen to me. Or you can start learning a little bit, starting attending seminars like this, starting to think about, what skills you need to have. And John, you're probably a really great example of that, right? John worked for Coca-Cola for 16 years, was a traditional marketer, saw AI, saw technology, saw what was happening, right? And went back to school to reskill.
Business analytics.
Right? Yeah. And so I think each of us have to invest in ourselves and our own careers to know that we're keeping up with where the world is going, right? Wayne Gretzky always says, you have to skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is. And I think all of us have to think about that.
Well put.
Before I wrap this up, let's all, if we could, just give our panelists a round of applause. Okay, I want to remind you that we did record the event. So once we have that all edited, we will post it up to the website. The website, you can see the resource landing page is up here. Also on your table in front of you, there's a couple of pieces of paper there. One of them also has those QR codes. You can take those with you. And there's a survey form. We would really appreciate it. If you don't have time to do it now, that's fine. Just, take a picture of the QR code and fill out the survey. But if you have time right now, we would appreciate it if you could just fill it out. Takes about 3 minutes. All right. Okay. We want to be able to continue to have this AI conversation. So it's important to us to know what's important to you. I think there's a section on the feedback form, so please let us know what you want to see us do next. All right. And before we close, Liam, do you have some final thoughts that you want to share?
Yeah, I really only have one thought, just to really almost kind of camp onto what I was saying a minute ago, right? AI is the biggest opportunity for you personally, for you professionally, for you as a company owner in your entire lifetime. And you either are going to reach out and grab it and figure out how to use that as a competitive advantage, or you're going to push against it. And I can tell you that those people who push against it, it's going to become a very steep hill. And so I applaud you guys for coming to seminars like this, for learning a little bit about what AI is, for thinking about how that could impact marketing, for thinking about the security side of that. And as Carol said, filling in these surveys and be thoughtful and be expletive, like give us some feedback, right? But think about this in terms of, we're trying to be helpful to you. We're trying to be valuable to you. How can we help you along that journey in a way that can continue to accelerate and create a community? We don't charge for these events, right? We're trying to make sure that you guys are prepared and that you guys are doing something that will allow you to be competitive in each of your spaces, right? And so, my ask is really think about that as you fill in that survey. And then last shameless plug for you guys, if you're thinking about agentics in some way in your business, I don't have 10 spots, right? We just don't have people to do that. But if you guys are thinking about something, we do have 4 or 5 spots available. Reach out to one of the folks who are here from MIS, and let's sit down and think about, is there something in your business that we can help make better for you? Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.